Hey there, fellow knowledge hounds. Are you ready to dive into a topic that's straight out of science fiction but very much a reality?
Absolutely.
Quantum simulators. You've sent us a stack of research on this, so we know you're serious about getting the full picture.
And it's a good thing, too, because this field is exploding right now. It's like scientists have cracked open a new door in the universe, and we're getting a peek inside for the first time.
Okay, you've got my attention.
Yeah.
But before we get lost in the quantum foam, let's set the stage. When we talk about quantum simulators, are we talking about some super-powered version of the computer I'm using right now?
Not quite. It's easy to think that, especially with all the buzz around quantum computers in general.
Right.
Here's the thing. A quantum simulator is a very specialized tool. It's not meant for, browsing the quantum internet or anything like that. Instead, it's designed to tackle a very specific problem, kind of like a super-powered microscope for the quantum world.
So less about replacing my laptop, more about unlocking secrets at the atomic level.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Instead of mixing chemicals in a beaker, imagine manipulating individual atoms, like tiny building blocks, to understand how materials behave or even how a disease operates at its most fundamental level.
Now that you mention it, a lot of the articles you sent mentioned simulating things like new materials or even chemical reactions. Could our current supercomputers handle that, or are we talking about a whole different level of complexity here?
That's the crux of it. Classical computers, even the behemoths we call supercomputers, they hit a wall when it comes to the quantum world.
Interesting. Why is that?
It all boils down to the sheer number of possibilities in a quantum system. As these systems get bigger, more particles, more interactions, the number of potential states they can be in explodes exponentially. Classical computers just can't keep up.
So, like trying to map every grain of sand on every beach in the world, it's just too much data.
It's more like trying to track the movement of every single atom in that grain of sand.
No.
It becomes mind-bogglingly complex very quickly. And that's where quantum simulators come in. They play by the same rules as the systems they're trying to simulate. They speak the language of the quantum world, so to speak.
So they offer a shortcut, a way to cut through all that complexity.
Precisely. They can represent and manipulate those mind-boggling numbers of possibilities much more directly and efficiently. Think of it like this. If a classical computer is trying to understand a foreign language by brute forcing its way through a dictionary, a quantum simulator is like having a native speaker right there to explain the nuances.
Okay, you've sold me on the why, but now I'm really curious about the how. What are some real-world scenarios where these simulators could be game changers? I'm talking tangible breakthroughs.
Let's start with materials science, since that's a big one. Imagine being able to design materials with properties we've never seen before. We're talking superconductors that work at room temperature. Imagine the implications for energy transmission. Or incredibly efficient solar cells that could revolutionize how we harness energy from the sun. These aren't just pipe dreams. These are real possibilities that quantum simulators are bringing closer.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Anything on the medical front.
Hmm.
A lot of our listeners are really interested in how this tech could impact healthcare.
Absolutely. Drug discovery is another area ripe for a quantum revolution. Imagine being able to design drugs at the molecular level, tailored to an individual's specific genetic makeup.
Oh, wow.
We're talking about more effective treatments, personalized medicine, and potentially even cures for diseases that are currently difficult or impossible to treat.
This all sounds incredibly promising, but let's be real. How far off is all this? Are we talking about something we might see in our lifetime, or is this still firmly in the realm of science fiction?
The field is young, but the pace of progress is astonishing. We've already seen breakthroughs in building arrays of hundreds of atoms, all held in perfect balance by lasers and used to simulate the behavior of complex materials. We're not just talking about theoretical papers anymore. This is real, tangible progress.
So it's not just hype. Things are actually moving from the lab to the real world.
Exactly. Companies are even starting to offer cloud-based access to these cutting-edge quantum simulation platforms. It's like giving researchers around the world a chance to experiment with the future of science.
That's incredible. But like with any new technology, I imagine there are still some hurdles to overcome. What are the big challenges facing the world of quantum simulators?
One of the biggest challenges is maintaining the fragile state of those qubits, the building blocks of quantum information. Any tiny disturbance from the environment, even a stray magnetic field or a slight change in temperature, can cause errors, a phenomenon called decoherence.
So it's like trying to build a house of cards in a hurricane. One wrong move and it all falls apart.
It's a delicate dance, for sure. Maintaining the stability of these quantum systems is a major engineering challenge. And then there's the issue of scalability. We can build these impressive systems with hundreds of atoms, but to tackle some of the really big problems, like simulating the behavior of a complex protein, we'll need to control thousands or even millions of qubits.
So two major fronts, the physical hardware itself, and then the software, the algorithms that make these simulators useful.
Yeah.
It seems like both need to advance in tandem.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's a two-pronged challenge that researchers are tackling head-on.
Okay, so we've talked about what quantum simulators are, why they're important, and some of the challenges they face. But there's one thing I still don't quite grasp. Can we just simulate these quantum systems on our good old-fashioned computers?
Yeah.
Why bother with all this complex new hardware?
That's a question that often comes up, and it's a great one. And the answer lies at the heart of why quantum simulators are so revolutionary. For simple quantum systems, classical computers can do a decent job. But as those systems become more complex, the resources required explode exponentially. It quickly becomes impossible, even for the most powerful supercomputers we have today.
So there's a limit to what classical computers can handle, and that's where quantum simulators step in.
Exactly. They allow us to explore parts of the quantum world that are simply inaccessible to classical simulation. It's like having a new set of eyes that can see things we've never been able to see before.
That's an incredible way to put it. So it's not just about speed, it's about accessing a whole new realm of possibility.
I got it. We're not just talking about doing things faster, we're talking about doing things that were previously considered impossible. It's a whole new avenue of scientific exploration, and it's incredibly exciting.
Speaking of exciting, what does this all mean for the future of scientific discovery? Are we on the cusp of a paradigm shift?
It's definitely a major leap forward. Classical computers have been like our workhorses for scientific research, but they have their limits. Quantum simulators are like a new breed of racehorse, capable of covering ground that was previously unreachable.
It's like we're handing scientists a whole new toolbox to unravel the universe's secrets, one quantum simulation at a time.
And the best part is we're just getting started. Who knows what incredible discoveries await us as these quantum simulators continue to evolve. The potential is truly mind-boggling.
Okay, I'm starting to feel like I'm peeking into the future of science here, but let's ground this in some specifics. You mentioned earlier that scientists are already building these things, these quantum simulators. What do they actually look like? Are we talking about giant room-sized machines?
It can definitely feel like we're stepping into a science fiction movie when we talk about this tech, but some of the most promising quantum simulators are built on surprisingly elegant systems. One particularly fascinating approach uses something called trapped ions.
Trapped ions. Okay, break that down for me. It sounds a bit intimidating.
Imagine this. We're talking about individual atoms, stripped of an electron or two, held perfectly still in a vacuum chamber by lasers. These trapped ions become our qubits, the basic units of quantum information.
So instead of silicon chips and wires, we're manipulating individual atoms with lasers. That's some next-level engineering right there.
It is pretty wild, right? And the level of control we can achieve is mind-blowing. By fine-tuning those lasers, we can manipulate the energy levels of those ions, essentially programming them to simulate the behavior of other quantum systems.
So it's like creating a perfectly controlled miniature quantum world.
Exactly. We're essentially building a quantum Lego set, where each atom is a building block, and we can arrange them in different configurations to simulate different materials or even chemical reactions.
You mentioned chemical reactions. What's the advantage of simulating those at the quantum level? Can't we just mix chemicals in a beaker like we've always done?
Well, traditional chemistry has served us well, but it has its limits. When you mix chemicals in a beaker, you're seeing the average behavior of trillions upon trillions of molecules. It's a bit like trying to understand the plot of a movie by watching the entire film at once on fast forward.
Okay, I see what you mean.
With a quantum simulator, we can slow things down, zoom in, and study those interactions at the level of individual atoms and electrons.
So instead of a blurry mess, we get a high-definition view of the quantum mechanics driving those reactions.
Precisely. We can see how bonds are formed and broken, how energy is exchanged, and how those interactions ultimately determine the properties of the molecules that make up our world.
Okay, I'm getting a sense of the power here. But what about the practicality? You mentioned drug design earlier. How would that actually work?
Imagine being able to simulate the precise interaction between a drug molecule and its target protein right down to the quantum level. We could see exactly how the drug binds to the protein, whether it produces the desired effect, and even predict potential side effects.
So instead of years of trial and error in the lab, we could design and test drugs virtually, speeding up the entire process.
Exactly. It could revolutionize drug discovery, making it faster, cheaper, and potentially leading to treatments for diseases that have stumped us for years.
It's incredible. But I imagine there are still limits to what we can simulate, even with this level of control.
Of course. The complexity of the quantum world is vast, and we're still in the early stages of developing these tools. Simulating a simple molecule is one thing. Simulating the behavior of a complex biological system, like a living cell, is another challenge entirely.
So there's still frontiers we haven't crossed.
Absolutely, but that's part of the excitement. As we develop more powerful quantum simulators, those frontiers will continue to recede, opening up whole new avenues of scientific exploration.
It's mind-blowing to think we could be on the verge of simulating life itself.
I know, right?
But even if we set aside that distant frontier, the potential impact on fields like medicine is massive.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine a future where we can design treatments for individual patients based on simulations of how their bodies would react at a molecular level.
That's the ultimate goal.
Wow,
Personalized medicine tailored to your unique genetic makeup.
incredible.
But even before we get there, we can expect some significant advances even in the near term.
Like what?
Well, quantum simulators could be instrumental in designing more efficient solar cells by precisely modeling how different materials interact with light at the quantum level.
That's huge for a future powered by renewable energy. What else is on the horizon?
Well, quantum simulation could revolutionize battery technology, leading to longer-lasting and more powerful energy storage.
Hmm.
Imagine electric cars with dramatically increased range, or homes powered by solar energy stored efficiently in cutting-edge batteries, all thanks to insights gleaned from quantum simulations.
It sounds like these simulators aren't just tools for scientific discovery.
No, they're not.
They're key to unlocking a more sustainable future.
Absolutely. It's about using our understanding of the quantum world to address some of the most pressing challenges facing humanity.
This has been a wild ride.
It has.
But I think the big takeaway for our listeners is that this isn't science fiction.
Not at all.
This is happening now.
Right now.
These things are incredible.
They really are. It's easy to get caught up in the what-ifs, but the reality is that quantum simulators are already pushing the boundaries of what's possible. The pace of progress is incredible, and the next few years will undoubtedly bring even more breakthroughs.
So to our listener who's clearly fascinated by this field, and you should stay tuned, the quantum revolution is just getting started. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic. Until then, keep those brain cells buzzing.